She was sold to the junkyard with her rusted prosthetic legs, until a human bought her back. Fluorescent bars buzz above a maze of scrap. Air tastes like hot metal and cold oil. Forklift coughs smoke. Vendors bark numbers. Jeremy moves through the salvage yard with a steady gait, black tunic zipped, hands bare, eyes scanning. He ignores the easy buys, copper bundles, cracked panels, dead drones stacked like ribs. He follows the smell of burnt lubricant to a low platform beside a crate of prosthetic joints. She sits there, back straight despite the filth, skin a deep sapphire that catches the harsh light, crimson hair matted to her cheek. Rusted prosthetic shins are welded into bone. The hinges shriek each time the dealer taps them with a rod. People glance and veer away. She does not hunch or plead. She meets their eyes, then dismisses them. The dealer grins when Jeremy stops. Dead weight. Good for parts. He taps again. The welded seam vibrates. Jeremy crouches. Does that hurt? Her voice is sand-dry but clean. You know it does. He studies the welds. Sloppy seams, heat blooms on bone line, corrosion migrating under skin. He notes the cheap bolts hammered into softened tissue. He also sees a detail the crowd missed. The coupler plate at her knee is newer, polished under the grime, mismatched with the rest. Someone replaced a key piece recently. Someone cared enough to try. What's your price? Jeremy asks. Price is pain, the dealer says, enjoying himself. But for you, auditor man, I can pretend it's credits. Jeremy's jaw tightens a millimeter. He never shows a badge here. He prefers to leave with what he came for and trouble no one. Still, the dealer's eyes say he recognizes him. Jeremy stands. I'll take her. And that crate of clean joints behind you. Both. The dealer laughs. You'll need a second mortgage. Write the number. The dealer names a cement to insult. Jeremy doesn't haggle. He lays a stack of chipped credit tags on the table. The dealer's grin widens. The woman speaks without looking at the dealer. Do you fix what you buy? She asks Jeremy. I do. If you carry me out of here, you finish the job. Not next week. Not when you feel like it. Today. Agreed. She studies his face for a beat, as if checking alignment. Then pay him and stop letting him talk. The dealer leans in. She comes as is. No returns. Jeremy signs the ledger. She isn't a unit. Sure she is, the dealer says. Unit 0. Jeremy lowers his voice. Your weld work violates ring safety code. If I file a report, you'll lose this stall and your stock. I won't file. You'll add the crate and the sterile kit from the cabinet. The dealer's grin fades. You always were boring. Efficient, Jeremy says. Papers exchange hands. A chain drops. The crowd loses interest. Jeremy slips his arms under her, one at her shoulders, one beneath the ruined shins. Heat radiates off metal into his skin. She grips his sleeve hard, then relaxes when he lifts cleanly. The hinges squeal. Her breath catches, but she doesn't cry out. Name? He asks as he carries her past rows of crushed hull plates. Malin, she says like a decision made now, not long ago. Jeremy. I noticed. They pass a boy stripping wire from a dead conduit. A woman counts bolts into a cloth bag. The forklift coughs again. At the yard gate, a loader blocks the exit. The driver scowls. Weight limit. Not for people, Jeremy says. The driver shrugs, glances at Malin, and moves the loader without a word. The service elevator rattles as it climbs. Thin light flickers through the mesh door. Jeremy stands braced, Malin's weight steady in his arms. Close up, the smell of rust gives way to something cleaner, like rain on hot stone after a storm. Sweat beads at her temple. She notices his gaze and lifts her chin. Pride holds there, not posing, just present. You didn't bargain, she says. I did, he answers. A bargain for time. She looks at the coupler plate near her knee. You saw it. Yes. Someone replaced that plate with a better one. Someone tried, she says. He stopped when it began to bleed. Then I'll finish. The elevator clanks to a halt on the 7th ring. Jeremy carries her down a narrow corridor to his quarters. The room is small, spare, and clean. A steel table stands under a white task lamp. A cabinet of tools lines one wall. Drivers, micro saw, solvent vials, neatly labeled. A kettle hums on a single burner. The only soft thing is a folded towel. Jeremy sets her on the table with a care that signals habit, not performance. He locks the door. He draws the blinds. He washes his hands. "Rules," he says, rolling up his sleeves. "You help me by telling me when to slow down. You stop me if I miss something. You drink water when I say drink water." She watches him lay out tools on a cloth in a straight line. "You like rules. They prevent pain," he says. "Most of the time." "Good." She nods at the shears. "Start with the cloth. It stinks." He slides the shears under the grimy wrap and cuts carefully. The fabric gives with a quiet tear. He folds it away. Clean air touches her skin. Blue emerges from brown. Old adhesive peels. She flinches once. He pauses, waits for her breath to settle, resumes. He warms saline, tests temperature on his wrist, and irrigates rust lines. Orange streams into the basin. He swabbed along the welds. He studies how metal invades flesh in a jagged tide. He sprays local anesthetic and tests sensation with a probe. She confirms with a small nod. "You were fleet," she says, reading the way he steadies his offhand against her thigh. "Medical," he says. "Now I audit food lines and water flow. Must be thrilling. It keeps people fed. Sometimes that's enough." He picks up a driver. "First bolt." She sets her jaw. "Do it." The bolt turns with a sharp crack. Sound ricochets off steel. Her fingers grip the table edge. He guides her through a slow breath. He keeps count in a low voice, not soothing, just steady. The second bolt resists and then yields. He dabs away a bead of blood, sprays antiseptic, moves on. Between bolts, he notices something under the coupler. A small pocket of sealant too smooth for this butchered work. He swaps tools, pries the lip gently, and exposes a neat layer of padding cut from a real medical kit, now soaked and failing. He glances up. Who did this part? She considers him. A dock worker. He watched me try to walk and brought a roll of gauze. He didn't ask my name. He did it anyway. "Good hands," Jeremy says. Shaky hands, she counters, but there is respect in it. He takes a micro saw and scores through a fused ridge where metal bites bone. The saw whines. He shields her skin with a thin guard. He cuts, cools with saline, cuts again. She holds his gaze to anchor herself. He keeps the rhythm. Cut, cool, check, speak. "Water," he says. "Half of the left hinge," she says. "Now," he says without bite. She smirks at the correction and takes the cup he offers. The heat from her palm touches his fingers. He retracts his hand an inch, then doesn't. "Your hands are shaking," she says. "They'll stop," he says. "They always do when it matters. They matter now. They do." He returns to the hinge. The final pin slides out with a grim scrape. The ruined lower limb drops onto the tray with a heavy, ugly sound. The table stills. Her shoulders slump. Air leaves her like a held breath released. A short laugh escapes her throat, raw and surprised. "One," he says. "Told you to finish today," she says, voice thin but fierce. "We're not done," he answers. He works the other side with the same attention. He breaks a small sweat. He doesn't wipe it. He keeps his eyes on the seam, not on the curve of her hip when the sheet shifts. Discipline holds. He makes room for human error by planning for it. He blocks his own angles to keep his gaze respectful. The second limb thuds into the tray. Silence settles. He disinfects, dresses small tears, and seats clean couplers with careful pressure. Solid clicks follow. He checks for oozing, finds none. He tapes sensors and notes their readings with brief marks on a card. Order returns to the room. He steps back and flexes his hands to loosen the stiffness. She watches every motion, not guarded now, just present. "You're quiet," he says. "I'm counting," she says. "What?" The ways he didn't look away. He rolls his shoulders once. Looking away is how people miss the damage. Or the person. He doesn't answer. He rinses the tools, sets them to dry, and wipes the table clean. The room smells like antiseptic and warm metal. The kettle clicks off. "Eat," he says, placing a bowl of plain broth within reach. She stares at the steam. "If I stand, I fall." "You won't stand yet." He pulls a stool close and sits at her level. Not looming, not distant. "We test fit after you rest." She sips. Her hands shake once and steady. She studies the salvaged prosthetics leaning against the wall. Matte graphite, simple and precise, clean as a new blade. Those are not cheap street junk. They're honest, he says. They'll take your weight without biting back. She nods. After another sip, she tilts her head. You said you bargained for time. For me or for you? For both, he says. I used all my credits. I plan to spread this work over weeks. You want it today. So today. She considers that answer longer than it needs. Then I owe you something. No, he says. Yes, she says, voice firm now. You asked nothing back. That's exactly why I owe you the truth. He waits. I wasn't sold because I'm broken, she says. I was sold because I refused to keep quiet about a supervisor on the 8th ring skimming medical stock. He sent me down here to shut me up. If you file a code report, you'll save people on his line, but you'll paint a target on your door. He absorbs that. He doesn't flinch. Names. I'll give them, she says, but only after I walk out of this room with my own legs. I won't crawl to accuse him. Agreed, he says, immediate and clean. She studies him again, finds the same answer, and seems satisfied. Then another truth. I tested you back there. I wanted to see if you bought me to possess me or to see me. What did you see? You paid more for the sterile kit than for me. So I decided I'd let you carry me. A small, reluctant smile touches his mouth. Then we're even. Not yet, she says. Stand me when you can. I want to learn your room like it might be mine. The room smells of antiseptic and warm broth. Jeremy sits on the stool, arms braced on his knees, watching Malin sip slowly from the bowl. Her lips are cracked, her hands unsteady, but she drinks without spilling. The silence is steady, not awkward, filled with the hum of the lamp and the faint rattle of a pipe outside the wall. When she lowers the bowl, Jeremy nods at the prosthetics leaning against the wall. You'll test them today. Not long, just enough to set your balance. Her eyes follow the graphite limbs, then shift back to him. And if I fall, I'll catch you. She studies his face as though weighing the certainty in his voice. The test ends with a small tilt of her chin. Fine. Jeremy clears the table, then lifts the tray holding the discarded limbs. He slides it beneath the counter, covering the rusted shapes with a towel. You won't see those again, he says, not asking. Her shoulders ease a fraction. She presses the heel of her hand against her thigh. You didn't ask why I was left in that yard. You'll tell me if you want to. Malin watches him adjust the coupler settings. The muscles in his forearm flex under the light, precise and controlled. Everyone else asks the same thing. They want a story to satisfy themselves. You don't. I don't need your pain to measure your worth. That answer lingers in the room. She swallows, then looks away, unsettled. The yard wasn't my first stop, she admits. They tried to put me to work. I lasted a month before the bleeding started. They got tired of patching me up, so they sold me for scrap. Jeremy doesn't react with pity. He checks the torque on a joint, calm as ever. Then we rebuild. She narrows her eyes. You sound like it's just a machine. It isn't, he says, looking up, his gaze steady. But machines can break. People can heal. He finishes the adjustments and wheels the chair closer. Ready? Her throat works. Not really. Good, he says, standing. If you were too ready, I'd worry you weren't scared. That pulls an unexpected laugh from her. Short, sharp, almost a cough. She covers her mouth, surprised at herself. He helps her slide forward, his hands strong but deliberate, never rushing. He locks the first prosthetic in place, the coupler snapping with a satisfying click. Her fingers dig into the table edge, jaw set. The second follows. Jeremy steps back. Stand when you're ready. She stares at the floor for a moment. Her breath comes shallow, then steadies. She presses her palms down, pushes, and her body rises, trembling. For one breath, her legs shake as if they'll collapse. Jeremy doesn't touch her. He waits, eyes on her posture, not her weakness. Her knees lock. She exhales, sharp and shaky. I'm up. Take a step. She hesitates, weight shifting. Then she moves. The actuator hums, the joint aligns, and her foot lands flat. She stares down, almost disbelieving. Another step follows, slower, more confident. Jeremy doesn't smile, but his shoulders loosen. Again, She walks to the far wall and back, sweat running down her temples, hair sticking to her cheeks. When she reaches him, she grips his arm before she loses balance. "Not bad," he says. "Not bad." Her voice cracks with effort and defiance. "That was a miracle." Jeremy steadies her hand on his forearm. A first step. Miracles are louder. Malin looks up at him, lips parting as if to answer, but no words come. The silence between them stretches, heavy with something unspoken. The kettle clicks again, breaking the moment. Jeremy turns to pour water into a clean cup, his movements calm, deliberate. Malin doesn't look away from him. She watches as if seeing not just the man who carried her from the yard, but the man who stayed to catch her afterward. The sound of her voice is quiet but firm. "Jeremy, don't disappear tomorrow. I've had enough people vanish." He sets the cup down within her reach. His reply is simple, steady, the same as his hands. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time, she believes it. The hum of the spires settles into the walls as night presses in. Jeremy adjusts the blinds, so only a thin strip of city light spills across the floor. Malin sits on the edge of the table, her new legs attached, bare feet brushing the cold metal tiles. She flexes the actuators cautiously, listening to the soft whir. Her shoulders tense with every sound, as if she expects the pain to return at any moment. Jeremy kneels at her side, checking the readout from the small calibrator clipped to her ankle joint. "Sensors are stable," he says. "Balance should improve with practice." He doesn't look up right away, giving her space. Malin's eyes flick to the discarded towel covering the tray that holds her rusted prosthetics. "You kept them," she says, her voice sharper than she intends. "They're evidence," Jeremy replies evenly. "The welds, the tools used, someone signed off on this. If I report it, I'll need proof." "You think anyone cares about a broken woman from the lower rings?" "I care," he says simply, meeting her gaze. The steadiness in his tone leaves no room for argument. She looks away, but her hands unclench. "If you file that report, they'll come after you." "I know." He doesn't explain further. His calmness unsettles her more than any false reassurance would. She tries to shift the subject, though her curiosity lingers. "What made you leave the fleet? A medic doesn't end up in an auditor's chair for nothing." Jeremy finishes tightening the last bolt before answering. "I saw more deaths than I saved. After a while, it felt like patching holes in a ship already sinking. I chose quiet work. Numbers don't bleed out in your hands." Malin studies him, noting the faint scar along his jaw, the stillness in his posture. "And yet here you are again, covered in rust and blood." His mouth twitches with the faintest trace of a grin. "I didn't say I was good at staying away." The air between them shifts. The tension is not just about legs or survival anymore. Her hand drifts unconsciously to his forearm, fingertips brushing the fabric of his sleeve. He doesn't move, doesn't pull back. "Why me?" she asks finally. "You could have walked past like the others." Jeremy answers without hesitation. "Because you look back at me." "Most don't." Her breath catches, but she masks it with a quick shake of her head. She presses her palms to the table and pushes herself upright. The actuators whine softly as she steadies. Her first steps are firmer than earlier, but sweat beads along her temple. Jeremy stays close, one arm ready, but not touching unless she falters. "Again," he says. She turns, walks back toward him, and this time she doesn't stumble. She stops directly in front of him, so close her crimson hair brushes his shoulder. She looks up, violet eyes steady, lips parted as if to speak, but no words come. The silence stretches, filled with the weight of what neither is willing to admit yet. The kettle hisses. Jeremy moves away, pouring hot water into 2 cups. He sets one in her hand, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. The contact lingers a second too long, and she doesn't let go right away. Malin takes a sip, then lowers the cup. "What happens tomorrow?" "You keep walking," Jeremy says, "and I keep catching you if you fall." Her mouth curves into the faintest smile, small but real. For the first time in years, the fear in her eyes gives way to something else, something that looks dangerously close to hope. Morning light cuts across the room, pale and sterile, washing over the steel table and the basin still streaked with rust from the night before. Malin sits by the narrow window, her crimson hair spilling loose over her shoulders, the borrowed black shirt hanging unevenly on her frame. She flexes her legs slowly, testing each joint, pausing when the actuators hum too sharply. Jeremy watches from the table, boots planted, arms folded. He doesn't interrupt, letting her find her rhythm. "You should have thrown the old ones away," she says suddenly, eyes fixed on the covered tray where her discarded prosthetics rest. "I don't want them in the same room." Jeremy straightens, pulls the tray out, and sets it on the floor. He uncovers it deliberately. The rusted limbs lie twisted, their hinges locked with grime. "You want me to destroy them?" She doesn't answer at first, jaw tightening. Then she says, "Yes." Jeremy retrieves a small cutting torch from his cabinet. He lights it, the flame thin and sharp. Malin doesn't flinch at the hiss. She watches every move as he slices through the hinge of one limb. Metal shrieks, sparks scatter. He cuts the second, then the next, until the pieces lie in ruined chunks. When he finishes, he kicks the fragments back into the tray and douses the flame. Malin exhales, as if something heavy has left her chest. "Good." Jeremy wipes his hands. "Now, they're just scrap. No one will ever put them on anyone again." Her eyes flicker with something close to gratitude, though she hides it with a smirk. "Efficient, aren't you?" He shrugs, pours water into the kettle. "Old habits." The silence that follows isn't heavy. It's tentative, like two people adjusting to the same room. She leans back against the window, violet eyes narrowing on him. "You said you were fleet medic. You must have seen things I can't imagine." He pauses, watching the kettle steam. "You imagine right. Then why did you help me? I'm not your crew, not your responsibility." He sets 2 cups on the table, his voice steady. "Because someone should have helped you long before I walked in that yard. Because leaving you there would have made me no better than the ones who sold you." Her hand curls around the warm cup he places before her. She doesn't drink right away, just studies him. "And what if tomorrow I can't walk again? What if this fails like the last time? Then we fix it again." His tone leaves no room for doubt. "And again, if needed." Her lips part, then close. She takes a sip finally, eyes still on him. "You don't scare easy." "I've been scared enough for a lifetime," he says. The words hang. She doesn't press further, but her shoulders soften. Jeremy glances at her legs, then back at her. "We'll go outside today. You'll walk the 7th ring walkway." Her brows rise. "In front of people?" "In front of people," he confirms. "They'll look. Some won't like it. That's their problem, not yours." Malin hesitates, fingers tapping her cup. "I haven't walked in public for years." Then today is the first time again. She studies his calm expression, searching for cracks. Finding none, she lets out a sharp breath. "You're stubborn." Jeremy's mouth edges into the faintest grin. It works better than pity. She looks at him, really looks, and for the first time she doesn't hide the flicker of a smile of her own. It's small, crooked but alive. The kettle ticks as it cools, the sound filling the quiet between them. Malin sets her cup down, pushes herself to her feet with deliberate strength, and says, "Fine, let's show them I'm not scrap." Jeremy stands too, steady as ever, and without saying it, makes clear he'll be at her side every step. The walkway on the 7th ring hums with the vibration of cargo lifts moving through the levels below. Air purifiers hiss faintly, blowing recycled drafts that carry the metallic tang of the spire. Jeremy walks half a step ahead, steady, scanning the flow of people, while Malin keeps close at his side. She wears a plain blue dress Jeremy bartered from a vendor that morning. Fabric simple but clean, cinched loosely at the waist. Her new legs move with careful rhythm, each step louder than she'd like, the actuators humming low. Eyes find her immediately. A pair of workers pause mid-conversation. A child tugs at his mother's sleeve and points before being pulled along. Malin feels their stares burn into her, but she keeps walking, jaw set. "Too many watching," she mutters. Jeremy slows, stops near a wall lined with rust-streaked pipes. "Break," he says like it was planned. He leans his shoulder against the wall. "Calm." letting her catch her breath without drawing attention. "They'll keep looking," she says quietly. "They will," Jeremy answers. "And you'll keep walking. They'll get bored before you do." Her violet eyes flick up at him, searching for a trace of mockery. There is none, just steady certainty. The tension in her shoulders eases, if only slightly. A food stall steams nearby, the scent of fried Draxon mushrooms cutting through the metallic air. Jeremy buys a bowl without asking, presses it into her hands. She glares at him for deciding, but when the warmth seeps in her palms, she doesn't argue. They sit at a dented bench while carts rattle past. She eats slowly, savoring each bite like it's the first real food she's had in months. Jeremy steals a piece with his fork. She freezes, then narrows her eyes. "You didn't ask." "I'm sharing," he says deadpan. Her lips twitch, almost a smile. "You're insufferable." "Efficient," he counters, the same word he used the night before. This time, she does laugh, short and real, and for a moment the walkway noise dulls. She sets the bowl aside, testing her balance as she stands again. Her steps are smoother now, less hesitation. A man passing by slows, staring openly. Jeremy doesn't confront him. He just shifts closer, his presence a quiet warning. The man looks away and keeps walking. Malin notices, her hand brushing Jeremy's arm as she steadies herself. She leaves it there longer than balance requires. "You don't even have to say anything," she murmurs. "People move. People read posture faster than words," he says. She studies him, lips parting as if she might say more, but she closes them again. Instead, she takes another step, then another, until she's leading him down the walkway. Her head is high, her crimson hair swinging with each stride, and for the first time in years, she looks less like someone surviving and more like someone reclaiming space that was always hers. Jeremy follows, silent, watching, knowing that this, her choosing to lead, is more important than anything he could say aloud. By the time they return to Jeremy's quarters, the lights across the ring have dimmed into their evening cycle, casting the corridor in a pale, amber glow. The door shuts with a firm click, sealing out the noise of the walkway. Malin leans against the wall for a moment, her breath still uneven from the long trek, but her eyes are alive, sharp with something new, triumph mixed with exhaustion. Jeremy doesn't comment. He sets the empty food container on the counter, fills the kettle, and lets it hum quietly on the burner. He glances at her legs as she stretches them forward, testing the actuators after the strain. No grinding, he notes. Good alignment. "You talk about them like they're engines," she says, her tone clipped but not angry. "They are, but they're yours now, not cages." She studies him from the corner of her eye, then sinks onto the narrow bed, crimson hair falling over her face. "I thought I collapsed back there," she admits. "But I didn't. Not once." "You didn't because you decided not to." She tilts her head, watching him pour water into 2 cups. "You make it sound easy. It isn't. But you don't need me to tell you that." When he hands her the cup, their fingers touch again. This time, she doesn't pull away. She drinks slowly, her violet eyes fixed on him over the rim. The silence that follows is different, no longer cautious, but heavy with questions neither has asked yet. Finally, she sets the cup down. "Back in the yard, when you looked at me, I kept wondering what you saw. Everyone else saw trash. What about you?" Jeremy sits on the stool opposite her, leaning forward, forearms resting on his knees. His voice is calm, steady. "I saw someone still watching. Most people in that place stare at the ground. You didn't." Her throat tightens at the words. She tries to mask it with a smirk, but her voice betrays her. "You're dangerous with honesty." He doesn't flinch. "You wanted the truth. That's what you'll get." She looks away, her hand sliding absently over her thigh where the prosthetic meets skin. "And if the truth is that I'm broken, then you're broken and still standing. That's more than most." The words land with quiet force. She doesn't reply, but her eyes glisten in the dim light, and she turns her face so he won't see. Jeremy doesn't press. He sits in silence, letting her have the space. When she finally meets his gaze again, her voice is softer. "You keep saying we'll fix it. Who fixes you?" Jeremy exhales slowly, rubbing a scar along his knuckle. No one. Not yet. The admission hangs in the air, stark and bare. Malin studies him like she's seeing past the armor for the first time. Then, without a word, she shifts closer on the bed, leaving space beside her. An invitation, not a plea. Jeremy doesn't hesitate. He sits next to her, the mattress dipping under his weight. The closeness changes the air, warmer, charged. Her shoulder brushes his arm, and neither of them moves away. She whispers, almost to herself, "Maybe you're not as untouchable as you pretend." He turns his head, their faces inches apart. His voice stays low, steady. "Never said I was." The room falls quiet except for the kettle cooling on the counter, the faint tick of metal contracting. She leans slightly toward him, lips parting, then stops, caught between fear and want. Jeremy doesn't push. He waits, letting her choose. Her hand finds the back of his neck, hesitant at first, then firm. She pulls him in and kisses him, brief, unpolished but real. When she pulls back, breath uneven, her eyes search his. Jeremy doesn't move, doesn't break the moment. He just says, calm as ever, "We'll keep walking tomorrow." A laugh escapes her throat, raw and shaken. You'd say that. And in the dim quiet of the room, the walls of the spire outside forgotten, she finally lets herself rest against him, her body no longer braced for collapse, but leaning into something steadier than steel. The next morning starts with silence, broken only by the low hum of the ventilation shaft. Malin wakes first, her head resting against Jeremy's shoulder where she had drifted the night before. For a long moment, she doesn't move. The rise and fall of his breathing, slow and even, feels foreign but safe. When she finally sits up, crimson hair falling across her face, Jeremy stirs instantly, eyes opening as if he had never truly slept. "You stayed," she says, her voice rough with mourning. "I said I would," he answers calm, without hesitation. She looks at him for a long time, as if trying to measure if those words can still be trusted. Then she swings her legs off the bed, the prosthetics touching the floor with a muted thud. She stands slowly, testing them again. The tremor in her stance is smaller now. Jeremy watches her closely, but he doesn't rise. He wants to see what she does without his hand nearby. She takes 3 steps before speaking. "They don't feel like cages anymore." "They never were," Jeremy says. "The people around you made them that way." Her throat tightens, but she pushes through. "Then let's make sure no one does again." He finally stands, stepping close enough that she feels the steady weight of his presence. "We will." Later, they walk the quieter halls of the spire, not the crowded walkways. The echo of their footsteps mixes with the distant rumble of machinery. Malin carries herself straighter than the day before. She meets the glances that pass her way, not hiding, and Jeremy notices the difference in her eyes. Less guarded, more defiant. At a corner they pause. She leans against the railing, hair catching the thin white light from above. "You never asked what I want now that I can stand again. I didn't think you'd tell me yet. Maybe I will." She turns, studying him. "I want to choose where I go. I want to eat what I like, sleep without fear of being dragged out, and walk in daylight without anyone deciding if I'm worth the space I take." Jeremy nods. "Then we'll start with daylight." "You keep saying we." She tilts her head, lips curving slightly. "You planning on following me forever?" He meets her look without flinching. "If you'll have me." The answer lingers, heavier than she expected. She doesn't deflect. Instead, she steps closer, her hand brushing against his chest, tentative but deliberate. "You keep catching me when I fall. Maybe I should see what it's like not to fall at all." Jeremy's hand lifts, resting lightly against her waist, careful not to push. "Then stand with me." The space between them closes with a slow inevitability. She kisses him again, firmer this time, and the hesitation from the night before is gone. Her fingers grip the collar of his tunic, pulling him closer, as if testing whether he'll still hold steady when she stops bracing herself. He does. His calm never falters, but beneath it is heat, controlled and sure. When they break apart, both breathing harder, Malin presses her forehead to his. You don't even realize how much I've wanted this, she murmurs. Jeremy's voice is quiet, certain. I do, because I've wanted the same. They stay there, close, the hum of the spire fading until the only sound is their breath. And in that silence, Malin finally lets herself believe she isn't walking this path alone anymore. The spire shifts into its evening cycle, panels dimming to a softer glow, corridors bathed in muted amber. Jeremy's quarters are quiet, except for the faint hiss of the kettle. Malin sits cross-legged on the bed, the simple blue dress folded neatly beside her, now wearing only one of his loose shirts. Her crimson hair falls in clean waves across her shoulders, still damp from the shower. The graphite prosthetics are propped near the wall, polished and aligned like they were always meant to be hers. She traces the edge of the mattress with her fingers, watching Jeremy move. He pours water into 2 cups, steady as always, then brings one over. She accepts it without breaking her gaze. You never asked what I'd do with you after this, she says. I didn't need to, Jeremy answers, sitting at her side. I'm here for as long as you want me. She tilts her head, studying his calm expression. What if I want more than just here? What if I want a life? With you. Jeremy doesn't hesitate. Then it's yours. The blunt certainty leaves her silent for a moment. She sips the tea, then sets it aside. You really don't scare easy. I do, he admits, eyes meeting hers. I'm just good at carrying it. Her hand finds his, fingers sliding between his knuckles. The contact is slow, deliberate, her touch warmer than the cup she just set down. She doesn't let go. Then let me carry some too. The hum between them builds, unspoken but undeniable. She leans in, her lips brushing his first, softer this time, more sure. Jeremy responds without hesitation, his hand rising to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. The kiss lingers, deepens, and when she finally pulls back, her smile is unguarded, unpracticed, but real. You're mine now, she says, half serious, half teasing. Good, he replies, because I wasn't planning on leaving. Later, they eat together at the small steel table, sharing a bowl of larnberry poor Jeremy had managed to trade for earlier. It stains their mouths faint purple, and Malin laughs when she catches him with the color on his lips. The sound fills the room, breaking the last shadow of the salvage yard. After, she walks a slow circuit of the quarters without his hand at her side, testing her steps alone. Jeremy watches from the table, not interfering. When she makes the full loop without faltering, she stops in front of him, chin high, violet eyes steady. See? Not scrap. Never was. He rises, standing close, his hand settling gently at her waist. I knew that the moment you looked at me. Malin smiles again, this time with no hesitation, no edge of shame. She rests her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. For the first time in years, her body doesn't brace for the next blow or betrayal. She just breathes. Jeremy folds his arms around her, solid and sure. Tomorrow, he says quietly, we start over. Together. Together. She repeats, the words certain on her tongue. The lights in the quarters dim to night mode. The city beyond the window a blur of pale lines and distant storms. Inside, there are no more questions, no unfinished promises. Only a woman who walks again, and a man who refused to let her be thrown away. The story ends where it always should have. 2 people in the same room. No fear left between them, nothing missing. Days pass in quiet rhythm. Jeremy and Malin settle into something that feels almost ordinary, though nothing about it truly is. Morning light drifts through the blinds, falling across the narrow table where 2 cups of seed coffee always wait. Malin moves easily now, her steps measured but confident, her hair brushed smooth and tied back with a strip of cloth Jeremy cut from an old tunic. She cooks simple meals with him, Varan root soup one night, grain cakes fried crisp on the next. They share the work without words, sliding around each other in the small space, their hands brushing more often than needed. She has begun laughing at things she never would have before, at the hiss of the kettle when it spits, at the way Jeremy always folds towels the same way. He pretends not to notice when she hums quietly while cleaning up a tune with no name. For her part, she notices how often his eyes rest on her when he thinks she isn't looking. On one evening, after they return from a slow walk along the outer corridor where the glass dome shows the sea below, Malin leans against the railing and whispers, "It doesn't feel like I'm surviving anymore. It feels like I'm living." Jeremy rests his hand lightly at her back, steady as ever. That's the point. Her answer is to take his hand and not let go until they reach their quarters again. Inside, the quiet stretches long. Malin sits on the bed, hair spilling around her shoulders, violet eyes fixed on him. "I'm done holding back," she says simply. Her voice carries no shame, only choice. Jeremy doesn't rush. He sits beside her, his hand tracing the line of her jaw, his thumb brushing across her lips. She presses into his touch, closing the distance herself. Their kiss is deep, certain, built from every look and silence that came before. When she pushes him gently back against the mattress, he doesn't resist. What follows is unhurried but unflinching. Malin explores him with the same determination she once used to take her first steps, her hands sliding across his chest, down his arms, feeling the strength beneath the calm exterior. Jeremy meets her with equal steadiness, his touch firm and grounding, his mouth moving across her skin in deliberate paths that make her breath falter. Clothing falls away in pieces. The room grows warmer with every shift of bodies, every sharp inhale and low sound caught between them. Malin's hair fans across the pillow, crimson against the pale sheet, her sapphire skin luminous in the dim light. Jeremy braces above her, his eyes never leaving hers, the unspoken promise in his gaze more binding than words. She pulls him closer, her body arching, the movement a command rather than a plea. Their rhythm builds slowly, then quickens, each movement a conversation of its own. Her hands clutch at his shoulders, his back, then slide to grip his neck as if anchoring herself. His mouth finds hers again, then her throat, then returns, each kiss sealing the moment. Her voice breaks in gasps, not words, but he understands them as clearly as if she had spoken. When the intensity crests, it does so without hesitation, their bodies tightening together before dissolving into release. She buries her face against his shoulder, trembling, while he holds her through it, steady as always. The room is filled with nothing but their ragged breaths and the faint hum of the spire outside the walls. After, Malin lies with her head on his chest, hair damp with sweat, her fingers tracing idle circles against his skin. "You didn't just give me legs back," she murmurs. "You gave me myself." Jeremy presses a kiss in her hair, his arm tightening around her. "And you gave me what I didn't know I was missing." They lie in silence until their breathing slows, the outside world forgotten. When she finally drifts to sleep, Jeremy stays awake just a little longer, watching her face soften by rest. For the first time in years, he doesn't feel the need to guard himself against tomorrow. The story ends not with survival, not with repair, but with two people choosing each other, completely without doubt. And for them, that is more than enough.